Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes New Utopian Enclave? Or a testament to inequality? Are North Sydney and Fairfield on different planets? Yes, to a degree. How are China's young graduates and universities coping with high unemployment? Furman hits 18 three-pointers, rolls over VMI 100 to 60. Solidly GOP. Indiana doesn't often see competitive primaries for governor. This year is different. New Utopian Enclave? Or a testament to inequality? New York Times. Cayala, a utopian residential neighborhood within the Guatemalan capital, has been criticized for its exclusivity and environmental impact. Developed by the wealthy Leal family, the area features white buildings with red roofs and cobbled streets. Shops are targeted at the wealthy and foreign residents of the nearby U.S. Embassy. The neighborhood is also monitored by private security guards. While Cayala has been praised for its innovative shared spaces, critics argue that it fails to address the inequalities and access problems that plague the majority of Guatemala City. The area has been the scene of recent protests against the country's president. The city has a poverty rate of around 60% and Cayala has been described as an abomination by one commentator. The neighborhood is planning to expand, but conservationists and the development's original architect have criticized the plans. Are North Sydney and Fairfield on different planets? Yes, to a degree. The Sydney Morning Herald. 50 years after university fees were abolished in Australia, educational equity is declining. The percentage of students from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds has decreased from 17.1% to 13.3% in the past 5 years. Education Minister Jason Clare aims to address this imbalance and has proposed a target of a 55% higher education attainment rate by 2050. However, the article argues that universities need to go beyond scholarships and equity programs and genuinely collaborate with disadvantaged communities to achieve these goals. The article emphasizes the importance of universities being part of their communities and not remote institutions. How are China's young graduates and universities coping with high unemployment? South China Morning Post. The youth unemployment rate in China is a growing concern as the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a slow post-pandemic recovery and scarce job opportunities. Official surveys have shown that more than 1 in 5 young people aged 16 to 24 were unemployed from April to June 2023. However, the authorities chose not to release the monthly rate from July to November. The revised youth unemployment rate for December was recently released, standing at 14.9%, but this figure does not include those enrolled in school. Reports from 24 universities across the country show that the employment rate for graduates has improved slightly from last year but is still significantly lower than pre-pandemic levels. Many graduates are choosing to pursue further education rather than enter the job market, with as many as 70% of graduates from top universities doing so in 2023. The number of graduates studying abroad has also increased, but figures are still below pre-pandemic levels. More graduates are ending up in part-time jobs, flexible work, or starting their own businesses. Universities are including freelancers and entrepreneurs in their employment figures to bolster weak numbers. There are concerns that youth unemployment could have long-term implications for social stability and the economy. Furman hits 18 three-pointers, rolls over VMI 100 to 60. Associated Press. Furman University's basketball team, the Paladins, secured a 100 to 60 victory over VMI. Alex Williams led the scoring with 23 points, while Carter Witt added 21 points. The Paladins shot 48.6% from three-point range and outscored VMI by 39 points from behind the arc. Marcus Foster, who returned from a knee injury, scored all 18 of his points in the second half. The victory improved Furman's record to 9-9 overall and 3-2 in Southern Conference play, while VMI dropped to 3-15 overall and 0-5 in the league. Tyron Cook and Stephen Alawonii scored 14 points each for VMI. Solidly GOP. Indiana doesn't often see competitive primaries for governor. This year is different. Associated Press. Indiana's May 7 gubernatorial primary has attracted a crowded field of 5 Republicans competing for the nomination. Two-term Republican Governor Eric Holcomb cannot run again due to term limits. The race is expected to be the most expensive in Indiana history, but turnout is unlikely to be boosted. Brad Chambers, who entered the race in August, has raised over $8.5 million in 2023 and contributed $5 million himself. His campaign ended the year with $2.91 million in the bank, according to records. Prenatal opioid exposure linked to eczema, asthma, WA study finds. The Sydney Morning Herald. Babies exposed to prescription opioids in the womb are more likely to be diagnosed with infections, eczema, or asthma, according to a study from the University of Western Australia. The study analyzed health records of over 400,000 children and found that prenatal exposure to opioids such as oxycodone, methadone, and codeine increased the risk of these health issues. The study also found that exposure to opioids in the womb did not increase the risk of allergies, anaphylaxis, or autoimmune conditions. The researchers highlighted the need for further study on the long-term impacts of opioid-induced immune changes during pregnancy. Australian port dispute brings increasing pain to economy. Nikkei Asia. An ongoing dispute between DP World and the Maritime Union of Australia, MUA, is causing disruptions and delays in Australia's supply chains, leading to higher costs for businesses. Since October, DP World has been at odds with the MUA, which is pushing for a pay increase for wharf workers and fighting proposed changes to the roster system. The MUA has engaged in rolling industrial action at DP World's terminals, resulting in partial work bans that have disrupted shipping at the company's container terminals. DP World estimates that the industrial action has cost Australia an average of 84 million Australian dollars, $55 million, in lost productivity per week since it started. The disruption has led to a backlog of over 48,000 containers that will take months to clear. The company, opposition coalition, and industry groups are calling on the federal government to intervene. However, the government has ruled out stepping in and called on the parties to resolve the dispute at the negotiating table. The ongoing disruptions are causing delays and adding costs to supply chains, particularly for perishable goods. The worst music in the world is back for good. Will pop punk ever die? The Independent. Pop punk is experiencing a revival, with the genre making a comeback in 2024. Artists such as Green Day and Wrexham's Neck Deep are releasing new albums and selling out shows, and the genre has its own dedicated festival, When We Were Young, in Las Vegas. The resurgence of pop punk can be attributed to a number of factors. The success of artists like Olivia Rodrigo, Willow Smith, and others who draw on pop punk sounds has reminded listeners of the music they grew up with in the 90s and 2000s. The rise of hip-hop has also contributed to the revival, with artists like Machine Gun Kelly and Youngblood bringing a hip-hop influence to the genre. Travis Barker, drummer for Blink-182, has been a crucial figure in the resurgence, collaborating with numerous artists and keeping pop punk visible in the mainstream. This revival also sees greater diversity in the genre, with more women and women of color participating and a focus on addressing toxic masculinity in songs. Overall, pop punk's cyclical nature and its timeless appeal of loud, melodic, and accessible music are driving its revival. Supporting Michaela. Telegraph. The High Court action against Michaela Community School in North London for stopping Muslim pupils from engaging in prayer rituals is unfair, according to an op-ed in the Telegraph. The head teacher, Catherine Burblesing, has been called Britain's strictest head for enforcing rules of behaviour and upholding values. The court action has been brought against the school's governing trust on behalf of a Muslim student, who claimed the ban on prayer was a breach of her right to freedom of religion. The author argues that the court should reject the claim and criticizes the unidentified pressure group behind the action. PASA Plus, January 18, 2024. Yahoo! The article includes a list of events happening in Santa Fe, New Mexico from January 17 to 19, 2024. Some of the events include a winter mariachi concert, a showcase by the Santa Fe Youth Symphony, a production of Macbeth, and a lecture on how to read a movie. There are also events such as a bird walk, a chamber music performance, and a presentation honoring the legacy of historian Mark Simmons. China's over 35s hit age barriers in tough labor market. Nikkei Asia. Workers in their 30s in China are facing increased risk of termination and struggling to find new jobs as the effects of the country's flagging economy unemployment deepen. Many companies are cutting labor costs by laying off workers in their 30s and 40s and replacing them with younger workers who can be paid less. This is leading to job insecurity and dampening household sentiment, with the Consumer Confidence Index showing no signs of improvement. The situation is causing concern in China, where employment is a key factor in maintaining social stability. What the controversial Ram Temple means for India's Hindus and Muslims. Bloomberg. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to inaugurate the Ram Mandir, a temple complex in Ayodhya dedicated to the Hindu god King Ram, on January 22. The opening of the temple fulfills a long-standing campaign promise by Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party and comes ahead of a national election widely expected to secure the Prime Minister a third term. The temple site, formerly occupied by a 16th-century mosque razed in 1992 by Hindu extremists, has been a source of tension between India's Hindu and Muslim populations for decades. I've lost over 4,000 pounds because of my ADHD. BBC. People with ADHD often experience additional financial costs due to the symptoms of their condition, such as difficulty paying attention to details and impulsivity. These extra expenses, sometimes called the ADHD tax, can include things like missed flights, lost items, late fees, and impulse purchases. The ADHD tax can add up to significant amounts of money over time. However, some high street banks are now offering features on their apps designed to help customers with ADHD manage their finances more effectively, such as instant notifications and separate pots for spending. China hopes for dragon babies as population decline gathers pace. Financial Times. China's population fell for the second year in a row in 2023, with deaths exceeding births by 2 million, according to official data. The country recorded 11 million deaths against 9 million births, down from 9.6 million in 2022. The falling birth rate, aging population, and economic uncertainty have posed a challenge to Beijing as it grapples with a property downturn, weak exports, and low investor confidence. Experts have warned that China needs to revive growth factors to avoid a debt deflation spiral. Sydney is having a scorcher. Think twice before you get in the ocean. The Sydney Morning Herald. Heavy rain in Sydney has caused pollution to sweep into the harbour and surf beaches, making them unsafe to swim in. DNA analysis has shown that most seawater contamination is caused by sewage, which can leak into stormwater due to aging water mains or heavy rain. Swimmers can potentially be exposed to harmful microorganisms that cause gastrointestinal disease and respiratory illness. It may take up to 72 hours for the water to fully clear after heavy rainfall. Researchers are working on testing kits that can be used on the beach to identify specific contaminants within hours. And that's a wrap on today's news. We covered a wide range of topics, from the controversy surrounding a utopian neighborhood in Guatemala to the revival of pop-punk music. But let's dive deeper into a few key stories. First, we discussed Cayala, a residential neighborhood in Guatemala City that has faced criticism for its exclusivity. While it has been praised for its innovative shared spaces, critics argue that it fails to address the inequalities and access problems faced by the majority of the city's population. This raises important questions about the responsibility of wealthy developers in creating inclusive communities. Next, we talked about the declining educational equity in Australia, where the percentage of students from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds has decreased in the past 5 years. Education Minister Jason Clare aims to address this issue, but the article emphasizes the need for universities to go beyond scholarships and equity programs and genuinely collaborate with disadvantaged communities. It's clear that true change requires institutions to be actively involved in their communities. We also delved into the challenges faced by young graduates in China, who are dealing with high unemployment rates due to the slow post-pandemic recovery. Many graduates are choosing to pursue further education rather than enter the job market, while others are turning to part-time jobs or starting their own businesses. This situation could have long-term implications for social stability and the economy, highlighting the need for targeted support for young people. And who can forget the revival of pop-punk music? This genre is making a comeback in 2024, with artists like Green Day and Neck Deep releasing new albums and selling out shows. The resurgence can be attributed to a combination of factors, including the success of artists drawing on pop-punk sounds, the influence of hip-hop, and collaborations with mainstream musicians. It's exciting to see the genre evolving and diversifying, with more women and women of color participating and a focus on addressing toxic masculinity. Finally, we covered a range of other stories, from a study linking prenatal opioid exposure to health issues in children to an ongoing port dispute in Australia causing disruptions in the supply chain. We also highlighted the opening of a controversial temple in India and the financial challenges faced by people with ADHD. That's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed our journey through the news. Now it's your turn to join the conversation. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any questions or comments? Let's keep the discussion going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.